So here we are again in the beautiful Sierra Nevada mountains at the Torah Observant Inn on Knowles Hill in California, where it never rains except for yesterday. We got another question, Eric. Lenore, you got one for him?
So, Eric, there was a conversation that took place about the aleph-bet and how the menorah, the 7 days of creation, the Mishkan pattern, and the Moedim are represented in the aleph-bet. And I just wanted to know if you could tell me what you think of that.
Well, there's a few different people that have ideas, written books, done lectures regarding a subject, correlating those things together. And I have my study, my opinion, subjective understanding, point of view, however you want to call it. There was an interesting thing I saw one day in Exodus 25. Let me find it here. Moses was taken up to the Mount Sinai and shown the pattern of the Mishkan, which is the tabernacle. And in Exodus 25, he's actually being told how to make the menorah. So in verse 33 of Exodus 25, he talks about 6 branches coming out from its sides, 3 on each side. And then he says 3 cups engraved like almonds on the one branch, a knob and a flower, 3 cups engraved like almonds in the next branch, a knob and a flower. So for the 6 branches that emerge from the menorah. And on the menorah shall be, which is to say the center one, shall be 4 cups engraved like almonds. So here you have 3 cups on 6 branches, that's a total of 18, and then 4 on the center one, that's a total of 22. It's like, hey, there's 22 letters.
Coincidence.
And there's 22 cups. So you look up this word cup, and it's Gimel-bet ayin. So this is the Ernest Cline's Etymological Dictionary, one of my favorite resources here. But if you look at Gimel-bet ayin, it's on page 90. It says it means hill or height or project or project. Gimel-bet ayin hey, it's related to that, which is a hill or a height. Well, a hill is this round, you know, like the hill over there. It's this bump. Why would you have a bump or a hill on a menorah, especially 22 of them? Picture the design of the menorah, and where do you have 22 hills designed like almonds? But if you look at Gimel-bet vav ayin, which is on page 89, where'd it go? It was right there. Gimel-bet yod ayin, excuse me. It means a cup shape. A cup shape, or a goblet. A cup of a flower. But if you have the cup of a flower, that's underneath the flower. So it's written as if it's a hill, but it's actually the same shape as a hill, inverted, which is a cup. Well, if you ever see a menorah that anybody's ever made, it's typically, they've got 7 branches with 7 lights. But what would you put in a cup? Where, if you engrave it, that's the underneath side, but a cup is an empty, hollow thing. And what would you do with that? Especially if there's 22 of them. And it seems to me, well, you know, this menorah is supposed to be ever burning. Perhaps these cups are filled with olive oil, which means there's 3 wicks per light, with 1 reflector in the back facing the front. But all you ever see is 1 light per 7 branches with a reflector towards the front. Not even necessarily the reflector, but that's what he said to have if you read having it face the front. But anyway, my point is, if you've got 22 cups, perhaps there was 22 wicks. Perhaps there was 22 lights, so if 1 wick ever needed to be trimmed, you'd still have 2 more burning, so the light would never go out. But there's 22 letters. Perhaps the 22 letters were reference to the 22 cups were reference to the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Well, if that's the case, say you were going to draw a picture of a menorah where you've got the center, and then you've got the typical pattern is these 3 curved branches coming out of it, right? And then the center one down here sitting on some sort of platform. Well, you got 3, right? So, and there's 3 here. and 3 here. But then there's 4 here. I made them square. They actually should be round. So there's 3 here, 3 here, and 3 here. Well, what does that got to do with the aleph-bet? Well, I think there's some people that said, well, you start from one side and you go aleph, and then the other side bet, and then the gimel, then the dalet, then the hey, then the vav. But what if you start on one side? Then you'd end up with, say, aleph, bet, gimel, and then this one representing dalet, hey, vav, and this one representing zayin, chet, tet, and the one in the middle would represent yod, kaf, lamed, mem. And then over here you got nun, samek, ayin, and then pei, zadi, kuf, and then resh, sheen, tav. Now, I'm not saying that's the way it really is. Just, you lay them out on top, and what do you got? Interestingly enough, this center piece of the menorah is called the shemesh, which is actually spelled sheen, mem, sheen, which is the same word for sun, S-U-N, but it's also the same word for a servant. Now, the other word for servant is obed, which is obedient, a worshiper. But the thing about the servant is it's a nimble servant who does his job expediently. So the sun jumps up in the morning, runs across the sky, and lands on the other side, then he hurries back to the other side to do the same thing tomorrow. And he was given a job to do. The sun, I'm anthropomorphizing, giving it the name he, but I'm just saying as a servant who goes about his business daily. So the servant candle is the one in the middle, and it's the one that is first lit and then used to light all the other wicks.
Right.
So if you do this and you end up with these 4 in the middle, yod, kaf, lamed, mem. So you can say, well, so what? Well, the interesting thing is the meanings of the letters are correlated to, at least in my study, the Erectology study, with the Mishkan pattern. What that means is there's certain letters which are coordinated or correlated, grouped together, finding a reference to the 7 days of creation pattern, which happens to, in my perspective, be the exact same thematic story or picture or telling as the 7 days of creation with the 7 Moedim, which is to say, on day 1 he said, let there be light.
Right.
The first of the Moedim, the first of the festivals, was Pesach. What happened on Pesach? He said, okay, look, you guys are in bondage. I'm going to set you free. Yahweh saying to Israel.
Yeah.
Well, it says there was darkness, and he said, let there be light. The first of the Beatitudes was, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. It's like being in a place of darkness or ignorance or death and being given light and life and allowed to come into the kingdom. There's this thematic parallel, a correlation between them. Day 2, he separated water from water in creation, and the second festival, Moedim, is unleavened bread, where you separate leaven from unleavened. It's a type of bread, and then you just separate these 2 types which you'd think look like the same thing, like water looks like water. Day 3, he separates water from earth, and then he speaks plant life into the earth, which is basically seeds. Like he's planting seeds on day 3. Well, the third festival is Shavuot. Now, this is different than what most people say. Most people say that there's wave sheaf and first fruits. The first of Shavuot, the first day of the counting the 50, they cut the sheaf down and they raise it up, and 50 days later they raise up at Pentecost. Pentecost means count 50, and they raise up these 2 loaves. Well, my take on the matter is that those are not 2 festivals. That's the beginning and the end of 1 festival.
Okay.
Now, if you have a key that goes into a door and you change a couple of the teeth, the key's not going to open the same door. So the people who say, traditionally, that there's 7 festivals, and they split these 2 days, the first day and the last day of Shavuot, into 2 different festivals, that means when you get to Sukkot, that's the 7th festival. But if you look, he says that the closing festival is Shemini Atzeret, which is after Sukkot. So Sukkot's only the 6th festival, not the 7th. Now, I know that a lot of people will be disturbed by this information because it's not what they have ever heard. There's a couple of the people that talk like this. But what I'm saying is, it's the matter of the tooth on the key. Which door does it open? So to look at it with this pattern, Shavuot is a 50-day festival, and it lines up with the day 3 having to do with planting seeds. Well, when you see what letters it lines up with, it lines up with Mem and Nun, which has to do with a womb and the thing living in the womb, which is the embryo, which develops and then jumps out of the womb, similar to the letter Mem being water, and the thing that's in water is a fish which grows. Oh, it's not the water, but it lives in the water, so it's a life form within an environment which develops and jumps out. So what I'm saying, there's these thematic correlations, and that lines up with one of the Beatitudes that says, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. There's other talks where I go through all of them. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to get back to this. But what I'm saying is that you can correlate the Beatitudes with the 7 days of creation, with the Moedim, with the aleph-bet. And when you get to the part of the aleph-bet where the center is Yod, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, as it turns out, all the Hebrew letters in their natural order, which is to say the alphabetic sequence, spell words in 2-letter and 3-letter increments, and here this is a 4-letter increment. And if you look up in the dictionary under Yod, Kaf, Lamed, what it means is to prevail, to have the power and capacity to contain it all.
Okay.
That sounds like a message.
Yeah, definitely.
Why does the center candle, having to do with the servant who is responsible doing the job which is imparted to him, like the sun getting up every morning and shooting across the sky year after year, to me it's saying, if you do what he has given you to do, because the center 2 letters is Kaf Lamed, which literally means all, and Lamed Kaf, if you read it the other direction, it means to you, or go. Go, this is what's been given to you, go ahead and do it. And the Yod means the hand that works, which means you're doing it. And the Mem has to do with the plural of them. So this is what he's given to you all to go do. And if you do it, he will give you the power and the capacity to prevail, to contain it all. But if you don't do it, you drop the Yod off and you end up with Kaf, Lamed, Mem. Then what you have is where we get the English word calamity, which is for everything to stop and be humiliated with shame and disgrace.
Okay.
Now I'm just looking at the first, these group of 4 letters as the first thing to talk about here with Menorah. But I made a chart a couple of years ago. Terry, could you take a picture of this we have on the computer?
Sure.
I made this chart available to people. It's called Organic Devarim, words spelled by the natural sequence.
I don't know how well that's going to show up.
Well, it's available. People can check out the website or the email, and I've sent that to people.
Just ask, we'll get it.
File. What it is, what I've tried to show is that if you read the letters from right to left, Hebraically aleph through tav, every letter means something. Every 2 letters is actually a word. Every 3 letters is a word that means something. So there's a message embedded within the natural flow of the letters. And also on this chart in the bottom half, I went the other direction and reading the alphabet backwards and seeing if there's a message there. But let me tell you what the message is.
Okay.
If you look at the individual letters themselves, the alphabet by itself, aleph, most words, or a lot of words anyway, that start with an aleph basically are words like I am or I will. It serves as a prefix. So you could say, well, who's the I referring to? By default, we're saying, listen, the aleph-bet written by Yud He Vav He, so it's referring to him. The aleph-bet is a message of self-disclosure where he's talking about himself, who he is and what he's going to do. And as I've said before, it also identifies the Mashiach, the Messiah, for who he actually is. Whoever that might be, this alphabet is his identification papers. Okay, so if aleph means I will, then bet is to embody, or the material universe. So you could say, well, I am, he's the creator of the material universe, but he will also embody himself, which is to say, step into the material universe. Gimel's the letter with a foot. It means to travel, like a voyager, an ambassador, one who goes from here to there. So he's going to step into his traveling wardrobe and Gimel, or travel to where? Dalet. Well, Dalet's the 4th letter. It kind of speaks of earth, you might say metaphorically, in that it's number 4, so you have north, south, east, west, summer, winter, spring, fall, earth, air, fire, water, solid, liquid, gas, plasma. These things of 4 speaks of earthiness in some people's minds. He is to be revealed, and Vav is the number 6, which some people say is a man, though it doesn't really say it's man, but it's a connector. That's a whole other thing. Whereas a bridge, Vav is a connector, like a bridge, it connects. Zion, the 7th letter, means to be cut off. which means to be distinguished or also to be killed, chopped. And then het is a fence, which is an enclosure. So here you have this implied, well, if het is a fence or an enclosure, and Zion is to cut off, then here's kind of like a picture of a moat, Zion, and a castle wall, het, where something is blocked. But Vav kind of being this bridge, I mean, does he provide a... So I'm here looking at the first 8 letters. Now, if you look at the 3-letter groups, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Baged, literally means to deceive, to beguile, betray, act treacherously, and to be camouflaged or in disguise. So Gimel Dalet, God, is the soundbite phonetic God, is where it means fortune and luck. In fact, Gad or God was the name of the Canaanite deity of fortune and luck. Dalet itself means to be reduced or diminished in value. Hey means, hey, look at this. And Vav is to be this one in particular. As a suffix, it means he or it. And like I said, Zion is to be distinguished. So here's the thing. If he says aleph-bet, gimel, dalet, the first 4 letters, I will, who's I? The creator of the heavens and the earth. The creator, the omnipotent one, reducing himself down, putting himself in some sort of bodily form to voyage to the earth in disguise as, hey, the one who looks like a Vav man who will then be put to the weapon Zion, which is to say distinguished, like, see this guy? And then the Romans put their weapons to him, shredded his camouflage earth suit, and then put him into a tomb, tet, the letter tet, which is a round thing, like a round stone rolled in front of the door. So he is thrown into the tomb, the tet, the round stone, rolled in front, and the Roman seal put on it, which is a yod. But the yod means, as the 10th letter, the suffix, meaning my. So you could say, by his hand, he has done these first 10 letters, aleph through yod. Now the interesting thing about that sounds like the Christian gospel of who Jesus Christ is. But the problem is, this isn't Christian. This is the Hebrew alphabet that Yahweh, I believe, originated and imparted to us as a communication of self-disclosure from before the beginning of the world. Now, as such, what that means is that these first letters are saying, I, the creator of heavens and earth, will put myself into bodily form somehow, whatever that means, travel to the earth, revealed as the door, revealing the door to get back to the heavenly realm, to the Father, you might say. But then he would be designated as special, but then put to the weapon, and you go, wait a minute, who's this guy that we're talking about? The letters Hey, Vav, Zion. Behold, this one distinguished, or put to the weapon, or with a weapon. And you could say, when Pilate took Yeshua and put the Roman whips to him and put him on display, and in the scriptures he said, behold the man, or in Latin it was ecce homo. In Hebrew it would be hine, which is behold, aleph-tav, now behold what? Ish would be man. Ishu might be man he or man it. Look what we did this man. So he might have said, hine et ishu. Well, ishu almost sounds like Yeshu, which became Jesus, or Isu, which is Greek and Latin for. So I think maybe this word Jesus came from Pilate saying, look what we did to this man. We put our Roman weapons to him and ripped off his baggage, his disguise, and now we're going to kill him and throw him into this tomb. Well, that's the first 10 letters. And then you have to say, well, when it says Yod Kaf Lamed Mem, he will prevail. Well, who's he talking about? Well, if these 22 letters are talking about the Messiah, then it's talking about he will prevail. Though he suffered a calamity, being put to shame and humiliated by having to suffer this death. But then you could look at the later letters, and it tells more story. In that, quickly, you have Kaf Lamed means all. I believe also Kaf Lamed represents the Torah. You have Mem Nun, which means beyond, and like this womb and being born or rebirth. You have Nun Samik, which is a miraculous event. The menorah is a picture of like a vine with branches, and Yeshua claimed to be this vine, and we are his branches if we do what he says, which is doing what the Torah is. You've got the letter Ayin, which is an eyeball, which have to do with scales of balance and judgment and determination, lining up with the beatitude that says, with the measure you use, it'll be measured to you. So this picture of being a good steward, doing justly, is a picture of the psalmic. So what this is a picture of, I believe, is to say, when you choose to enter the kingdom of heaven, which is like the position of, because he was put to death, behold the man slain, Hey Vav Zion. We are allowed to enter the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are the pure in heart, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And as soon as you step inside, you've got this tet, there's another way to read it, where the tet is like this spinning potter's wheel, and Yod, the potter's hand, forming us. So we step inside like a piece of clay. He puts us on the potter's wheel, conforms us to the image of the Torah, which is the Kaf and Lamed. Teach and learn these matters. And then Mem and Nun, we take them to heart, and we bear them with the warm affection of trying to develop and nurture the seed planted within us, like on the day 3 of creation, like on Shavuot, which is this 50-day festival of being pregnant. And then we are, those are the spring festivals. Then you go to the fall festivals, represented by the psalmic of Yom Teruah, bearing fruit. That's the Day of Trumpets. The Ayin Yom Kippur, Judgment Day, where what we've done is measured and weighed, and it's going to come back on us, as he says. The Pei is this open mouth. The festival of Sukkot, which is rejoicing. The Tzadi lines up with Shemini Atzeret, also lines up with the Sabbath day, the day that people forget, the festival people forget. Interestingly enough, the word spelled Pei Zadi is open mouth. And when Yeshua sat down to speak the Beatitudes, it says right there, the first thing he says is, he opened his mouth and taught them, saying. And this phrase, he opened his mouth, literally draws us right back to these letters, Pei Zadi. Well, after the Pei Zadi is a picture of the open tomb. Zadi is a sprouting, a rebirthing. Kuf, our letter Q, is the next letter, which has to do with the word kumi, which is to arise. After Yeshua rose from the dead, he rose up into heaven, and the Melachim, the angels, said to the disciples, the Talmudim, what are you looking at? You know he's going to come back the same way. Well, the letter Kuf also speaks of a return, like going out and then coming back. Reshin Tav. Then the last 3 letters that line up on this other branch of the menorah literally means a net, a trap, or a snare. Or gather up that which you've come to. Kuf is shaped like a sickle. You come back to harvest and take that which is yours. The word that's spelled aleph resh shin tav is to say betrothed. So he's going to Kuf resh shin tav, come back and gather up his betrothed and take them off with him. So here in the alphabet, the message is, I, who am the creator of the heavens and the earth, matter, physical matter, will put myself into physical matter to travel down to the earth to show the door to those being the door, revealed as the man who would be slain, so that they can enter the kingdom. And as they enter the kingdom, they learn the rules of the covenant, which are the protocols of the kingdom, so that they can teach and learn what I gave them in scripted, which is Kaf and Lamed. Lamed means teach and learn. Taking it to heart, they will then be positioned like Yom Teruah, which is the day of principalities and authorities and the heralding of the king and all. They will be positioned as branches on me, the vine, rooted in Yahweh himself, Mashiach the vine, such then that he says, now remember, you can't do anything you want, because whatever you do is going to come back on you. There's the scales of balance, the ayin, and he's going to watch and see our fruit. The ayin is drawn like a circle with a dot in it, like a fruit with a seed, so that whatever it is you're putting out, being the branches, whatever fruit that is, it's going to come back. But if you do the instructions of the Torah, what comes back is good things. If you do bad things thinking the law is done away with, what's going to come back is all kinds of ouch. All kinds of ouch. But he said, the joy of Sukkot, the festival of rejoicing, indicated by this pei, the open mouth, has to do with eating and drinking and talking and laughing and singing and praying and the fellowship of the day. But Shemini Atzeret is a picture of the hope set before us, which is the resprouting. Like the caterpillar going into the cocoon is like a picture of Yeshua going into the tomb, and then when its time is fulfilled, it comes sprouting back out, not as a caterpillar again, but as a butterfly, the same creature, a completely different thing. Instead of going in eating lettuce, it comes out drinking nectar. What I'm saying is that this is the message embedded within the aleph-bet when you see it broken up into these parts like a picture of the menorah. But the final promise is the end is the same guy who said, I'm going to do this, comes back as Resh, the Prince, the Exalted One, Sheen, El Shaddai with teeth and fire, destroying his enemies, and Tav, fulfilling the covenant just as he promised. And it's pictured in the message of the aleph-bet letters in their natural sequence.
That's amazing.
But Eric, you still didn't answer the question.
I didn't. What
Kidding,
was the question?
kidding. That was awesome, brother. Well, we're going to close this until next time. We're at 25 minutes.